time. And then we had, some of you may remember, those beautiful grandfather clocks that we had in houses to tell the time. And later on was the pocket watch and the more classic watch. And then something appeared that was a real disruption to the market. And this appeared over there. The quartz watch coming from Japan. And that destroyed, I would say, 80% of the watch market in Switzerland. This is really when something happens, and this is a really fantastic example of disruption. Something that happens, Switzerland had been in the watch industry for 200 or 300 centuries, and it was the world number one, and everyone was producing the watches in the same way, in the same similar way. And suddenly the Japanese come with this absolutely amazing and crazy innovation and technology that enabled them to create cheap watches. And B was telling the time. Before that, you had to always move your watch to make sure that it would keep the time. And every day you had to set it back by 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to make sure that you had the accurate time. And the quartz watch really was telling you the accurate time. It was cheaper, and you didn't need to really make any movement with your hand to be able to go there. And it really made 80% of the watch industry in Switzerland collapse. That can happen to any industry, okay, nowadays. It happened to the watch industry. It can happen anywhere. And then something happened. And that's the swatch happened. And that was another disruption in that field of watches, in a disruption by a family business. An amazing visionary entrepreneur from Switzerland, and Mr. Hayek, Nick Hayek. And he, which was more his employees than him, but he had the at least the amazing ability to recognize that it was quite a revolution there. And it was one way to automize. And when you think about Switzerland, that was a huge, big leap because you had these manual watchmakers who were working for hours producing watches, and then suddenly you come with innovation where you have 15 pieces, different pieces of watches that collapse together and produce that watch. And it has been a huge success. It was a real revolution. It was going on the cheap end, again, going from the Switzerland being the high-end luxury production of watches to the cheap end of mass production of watches, but really making it very trendy and a great success. Now, and this came from a family business. So the 3 types of innovations I've shown you just now, we see that family businesses can go there. Disruptions are very difficult, though. Do you know who is the biggest company for disruptions in the market at the moment? If you had to guess, who would you say? Apple? Yep. And that continues my story about disruptions in the watch industry, because Apple, really great and very, very special company. They came not only with one disruption, but with several of them. The way they changed the telephone company, the way they changed the media company, the way they changed communication and technology is absolutely amazing. And the iWatch, how many of you have seen the iWatch? Okay, quite a few. How many of you want to buy the iWatch? I don't know. I was with a group, I can tell you, I was, 2 hands, me too. I was with a group of 50 next generation last week, and I asked that question, and all the people who had raised their hand saying that they had seen the iWatch, all of them raised their hand to say that they would buy it. And I think it does that. Before you see it, you think, oh, no, that's a gadget. And then you see it and you want to have it. See, but what is interesting is the reaction of family businesses, because one thing that is important with family businesses in particular, and you mentioned it, is how difficult it is for them to react to innovation and how difficult sometimes it is for them to move. Quick decisions, but slow at changing. And there was Nick Hayek, the son of the founder, was interviewed regarding the iWatch and the iWatch coming out on the market, and he completely dismissed it. And he said, this is just a gadget. It's not going to influence us. We're not going. For us, it's business as usual. We're not going to be influenced by that. And he was really quite dismissive, to be very polite, of the product. See, and last week I was with Karl Friedrich Schäufele, the head of Chopard, and he's the head of the watchmaking part division in Chopard. And I asked him the same question and said, what do you make of the iWatch? And he said, well, I don't know if it is going to impact us because we are at the high luxury end of watches, and it might not come to our sector. And he said, well, okay, but I'm still curious. So I asked my son, and his son is 19. And his son said, really, I think that a beautiful watch on your wrist is still a beautiful watch. And I don't think that the iWatch is going to be there because it's too small to really have enough information. And then what Karl Friedrich Schäufele said, he said, but you know what, at the end of the day, I don't really care. I'll keep my eyes open. But what is important to me is that people will get used to have something, to wear something on their wrists. And therefore, it will draw the attention to whatever you wear on your wrist and draw the attention to our products and to other watches. So maybe it is going to be good for us. But in the attitude, we see someone who is... he doesn't know. And that is what most of us have with disruptions. We don't know. Nobody knows the future. Nobody knows which technology is going to be the next technology and the next revolution. But keeping our eyes wide open, keeping our ears wide open, also to be ready if the move really goes there, to be ready to jump is important, because too many companies fail because they don't want to see the jump and they completely ignore the disruptions. They really are in denial and think that they are not going to impact the markets. It has proven wrong in many, many different ways. So I don't know if the iWatch is going to be a revolution for the Swiss watch industry, but it is interesting as a market to watch the evolution in that sector. So I just hope that this illustration gives the disruption a little bit closer to home, a little bit more real. The last innovation that I would like to talk about is the business model innovation. And business model innovation is really the newest form of innovation that companies are going after and that academics are talking about. I've taken two examples that are not necessarily family businesses here, but I think that they explain quite clearly what that is. Volkswagen, it's debatable whether it's a family business or not. I would say no, but the Page family is really very much at the helm, and the alliance with Porsche is definitely there. What Volkswagen illustrates is really how can we find commonalities between our services and our products. In other words, business model innovations are innovations that no one in the market will see. Okay, none of your clients will see what innovation is there. It is a purely internal innovation, but that helps you gain a competitive advantage, a very strong competitive advantage. And usually, and that's why I don't have so many family businesses in there, usually you keep it very quiet so that your competitors don't know how you gain your efficiency. So Volkswagen, what they do is that they try to standardize and uniform their products. They have lots of different types of cars, but they try to have similar products inside the cars. And therefore, they can streamline the number of products they have, and they can make sure that they bring the best innovation to the ones that they have there. So really gaining a lot of cost efficiency in there. LAN, do you know LAN? It's the Chilean airline company. Airline companies, another disruption I could have had was EasyJet, which was really a family business, but I'll use LAN because it's more current. One thing that you have, and this is really important, it's how we can hedge between different businesses, meaning that we have risks in our portfolio of businesses, of services in some of them, and we can offset those risks by introducing new services of products. When you have a very cyclical product that sells in the wintertime or in the summertime, for instance, one great thing is to introduce a product that sells in the opposite season, for instance, and then you can streamline your seasons and you can maximize your production as well. What LAN does is something like that. They do both passenger and cargo transportation with their flights. So, and very often when they go from Europe to Latin America or Latin America to Europe, they need to stay overnight. And we know that when planes stay at airports for a long time, they pay a lot to the airport. Their charges are measured by the number of hours they stay on the airport. So what they do, because they do cargo, when they arrive in Santiago, for instance, they will disembark the passengers, and who will stay there overnight, and they will have the flight the next morning. And instead of staying put on the airport, they go to another airport in Chile and they deliver the cargo and stay there for a while and then come back to Santiago to get the passengers ready for the next flight in the morning. And like that, they have two service lines in one go. And they first of all, they maximize their operations, but they also minimize their standing price and cost that they have at the airport.